Hey, Kevin here, and I promised you a while back that I was going to have an interview with the individual that's building this house, and I caught up with him today. He's out here working on his project, and so I thought we'd have a little conversation with him about, among other things, what it's like to not have to pay rent. And so Cameron is the owner of this project and builder of this project, and I thought I would catch up with him and say, just kind of find out why and what and how he came about deciding to go through this process and build this tiny house, and just get some thoughts so you guys can kind of see how do people come to this conclusion that this is the thing to do. Okay, so Cameron, what was the original? How did this idea come about?
Well, originally, someone else that I know who's building a tiny house on property suggested that I do something like this, and I remember my initial reaction was, no way, because it sounds crazy, because it is. But after a little bit of thinking and realizing that this was actually brilliant, because I would live in my own house, I wouldn't have to pay rent in the small apartment that I was living in, and just felt like I had to take this leap and start doing this, and we're here right now.
Yeah. And so you didn't just do this under sort of everyday conditions. You decided to do this in the middle of a pandemic with all kinds of crazy variables going on in the world. You were living in an apartment at the time with a friend and working at a job, and got this idea that this was the better thing to do, and yet you're doing it during this shutdown where businesses are shut down, prices have gone up on all kinds of stuff, including ridiculously so on building materials. What were you thinking?
I was thinking that I was tired of living in a tiny apartment, working at a job that I wasn't happy with, and just being told what to do all the time. What initially made me do the leap is when it came to number crunching and realizing that to build something like this is not insane, but you would make it back in a year or two not paying rent.
Yeah.
That was one of the initial, whoa, okay, this is financially worth it. And then because of the pandemic and stimulus checks and little bonuses, at work, I was able to just pack away as much as I could, and had a price quote on the lumber, and like you said, the price jumped $1,300 in a week from the quote, and so that sucked, but we knew we had to pull the trigger as soon as, because it only went up from there. I mean, that was irritating.
Yeah.
But
and so what building experience do you have?
none. This is it, pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean,
So another leap of faith was you were, move out of your apartment, so kind of give us a little bit of a timeline. How many months before you actually decided to do this, and then you had your lease was coming up, and so you got a couple things. Your mindset changed, and how were you starting to sort of value your spending habits, and kind of moving toward this target date when your lease was coming up, and then what time of year on top of that was that happening?
So I think the first stimulus check was like March of 2020, and I know it was a little bit before then that I made the decision to do this. And so I was like, all right, stimulus checks are getting saved. Any excess spending going out, I mean, things were shut down anyway, so that kind of actually helped. Started working from home, which was amazing, and then I cut down on the gas bill and all that, and so it just was able to dump as much as I could into this, which you just kind of start to realize that there are a lot of things you're spending money on that don't really matter, that you really could be spending it a lot more wisely. And if I was realizing if I do something like this, that I would end up having more money at the end of it, because I wasn't wasting it on the rent and the gas to travel to the job that was, miserable, that I didn't like anyways. The hamster wheel of it all was just driving me crazy. And, with this, I get to be the one in control.
Yeah.
Cameron, tell us, I'm sorry, this is the camera girl, guys, but I gotta ask, so give us a little stats on yourself. How old are you? Kind of what's a little bit of your background. Have you ever owned a home before or anything like that?
No, I was basically in college for forever until I got this job the end of 2019. I'm 29 as of yesterday. Thank you very much. And now I've never built anything before. I mean, I barely swung a hammer. I mean, I have, but my forearms were pretty dead after day one of this because it was just such a shock to everything that I've
And
been
Cameron,
doing.
you actually got a little tiny bit of experience before you built your own, because didn't you help somebody build a tiny house last fall so you could start learning?
A little bit of a cheat.
Yep.
I did get a little bit of a rough course on framing and tiny house building, which was definitely helpful in terms of starting this, because I had no idea what I was doing. Still kind of don't, but you just take it one step at a time, and then after that step's you just figure out what's next, and just keep going.
Cameron, do you think that anyone can do this regardless of their age or experience? Like,
Yeah.
what are your feelings about that?
Definitely.
And why?
Especially with YouTube University these days, you can figure out how to do anything.
Right.
You just got to know where to look to figure out where to start, because there's plenty of resources and a lot of people that would love to help. A lot of people love the fact that people do this kind of thing and would want nothing more than to help you out with it, which I've been very lucky to have.
And then, so you kind of made this target date of getting out of the apartment because your lease was coming up, right?
Yeah, so the lease,
And what month was that?
February, for some dumb reason, because I was like, oh, we'll get a shorter lease, and then, oh, it'll be great, and then not realizing, well, it's the middle of winter
Yeah.
when it's time to move out.
Yeah, you're in a 4-season climate, so February is pretty cold and snowy at that point, and you're
It was
thinking, I'm
pretty
giving
chilly.
up my apartment just because I don't want to renew my lease,
Right.
because that's going to put me,
At least 6 months.
yeah,
That
and
was the
then
minimum.
you're going to be in the middle of where you want to be building and putting your money into that project rather than rent, right?
Yeah, right about the time I was going to be ready to build, like beginning of spring, mid-spring, would have been in the middle of this new lease that I had to file, and so I was like, well, I don't want to do that because that's a lot of money that I could dump into this instead, and so I left. I moved out. My brother was gracious enough to let me put my computer in his house to work from home for a couple months before I quit that job, actually. And then,
So where'd you stay? What were you doing? Because you couldn't build in February.
right, yeah, we were still gathering the money to make the purchase. I was couch surfing. My brother let me stay at his place. I was living in a Sprinter van for a little bit where my bed currently is. Just kind of anywhere I could shut my eyes and be warm.
And so when did you start the project?
I had vacation from work, I think it was in April. It's only a couple months ago.
Yeah.
And in that week of the vacation, we were able to get a lot done. We got the whole thing framed up. It wasn't dried in, but it amazed me at how quick the process can go once you're just able to dedicate time to it.
Right.
You know.
So April, took a week off work, you're kind of couch surfing, you're working full time, and you're sneaking out here and working on this project, trying to get it going forward, and then you quit your job.
Yeah.
That's when did that happen? What happened there?
So that was the end of May. I think it was the 28th, right before Memorial Day. It was an okay job. I got promoted in 10 months. I was rising up pretty quick, but then just kind of realizing I don't want to do this anymore. It was, customer service for a bank, which was fine, but it was just so monotonous. Same thing day in and day out, and I was on a later shift, so I wasn't getting off till 7 p.m. during the weekdays, and it just, that accompanied with an apartment living where you have all these rules. We couldn't even work out in our own apartment because everyone got upset. You just can't do anything. Like, you just have to sit there, be quiet, and do your thing, and it just didn't seem like a way to live. I know for me personally, I was going crazy. It's not me.
So then you decided to just basically do a 180 and do the opposite of everything you've been doing.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like up until this point, what I thought was working really wasn't, because I wasn't very happy and everything. And this, I just knew that this gave me control. This gave me the reins, and then it was up to me, which is what I would prefer. I mean, we started building wood furniture,
Yeah.
Adirondack chairs, and we're trying to get into coffee tables. We
And
started that in
What
January.
what kind of experience did you have?
None. None. I was able to get a hold of a DVD of a guy I know that built them and assembled them, and then just started doing it.
And
I
you
mean,
build those to sell for money?
Yeah, that's
That was one of your money-making ventures.
yeah. And when you don't have rent to pay every month and all this overhead for living in the city in a little tiny apartment to work the job that you hate, when you make decent money selling something that you built, it goes a lot farther.
Yeah.
You're able to use it in a lot more ways that you want to do it.
And you've done some other things to make money here and there, just kind of picking up odd
Yeah.
jobs too.
What I can get my hands on, you know, helping with family and friends, farm work, fence building, you know, cattle wrangling, stuff like that. Whatever I can get to, paint jobs and things like that. But again, it's feasible because I don't have this huge, crazy overhead expense every month like rent, which was $500 a month right there alone.
Right.
And it's able to.
So you could just
dump
put
it
that
into
into here instead.
Yeah, it's a way better investment rather than dumping money in a hole for someone else.
So what's it feel like? Just kind of not. You don't have a job. You're sleeping on the couch. You're building this house that you don't have any experience building, but you're not paying rent. What's that like? What do your friends think of this? What do your family think of this? Where are you at on that?
For me, it's freeing.
Yeah.
Because, like I was saying before, I'm in control, and so it almost doesn't matter everything else because it's all on you, and you get to decide. I get one of two reactions on opposite end of the spectrum from my friends. Either, whoa man, that's cool, like, you know, want to know more, or what the hell are you doing, you crazy man. And it's interesting to get that kind of reaction from people, you know, I've known for a long time and feel like should know me, but yeah, people think you're crazy when you do something like this because
It's out there.
I mean, it is.
It's
I mean,
not
even for
normal.
me, I'm in the middle of doing it, and it definitely doesn't seem normal, but normal wasn't working.
Right.
And so, yeah.
So you just jumped off the cliff, started building the parachute on the way down,
Yeah.
figuring out how to build this and how to finance it and how to, you know, piece it together and where you're going to stay while you're doing it. And so how far are you from moving in?
Very, very, not far at all.
Yeah.
We got a little bit more sheeting to do and some flooring. I mean, hopefully within a day or two, I can move my bed up to the loft where I'll be sleeping. And yeah, we're right there.
Cool.
The as far as the cliff jump goes, I was just way more unhappy with what I was doing than the fear of jumping and doing this.
Oh, interesting perspective, yeah.
I was way more unhappy. It almost like, I don't care if this falls flat on its face.
Yeah.
I'll still be in control. It'll still be on me, and I'm free from that hamster wheel that was running me ragged.
So you chose a fairly unique design. Why? What made you go here?
Well,
You got this two-story kind of thing with a shed roof, and talk about the dimensions and, you know, why. What are you doing here? What made you pick this?
so yeah, this is 12 by 16, 16 feet high on the tall side, 12 feet on the back side, with that single angle roof. Honestly, the only reason we did the single angle roof is because I didn't want to deal with trusses. I didn't want to go through that nonsense. This seemed like it might have been easier. Whether or not it was, who knows, but definitely happy with it. With the 2 stories, basically, I wanted to be able to stand up in the loft and have plenty of room for computer, bed, the bedroom up there. And then that just took it all away from the downstairs, you know, living area, kitchen, bathroom, living room. We actually got the plans. This is a shed plans that we found online that we had a couple of adjustments and stuff like that ourselves, but
You made it work for you.
yeah, exactly.
And so you're going to be on grid, but you're not currently. You've got, I see some outlet boxes on the wall, and there's an air conditioner in the window.
Yeah, that's a must, especially right now.
And so you found, and it's pretty hot right now, and that little tiny window air conditioner is actually big enough to cool this space down and keep it comfortable.
It's amazing. That window is only 2 feet by 3 feet, and the air conditioner is a little smaller than 2 feet, and it's 6,000 BTU, I think, and it's perfect.
Yeah.
We have it's just comfortable in there. It was honestly blew me away. I thought maybe we were gonna have to get two, kind of have an upstairs downstairs thing, but even without a fan, because we insulated that thing super tight, it cools it right down.
And you chose something that I haven't seen in too many tiny houses, and that's the sliding glass door.
Yeah, you know, I don't know. I wanted to have more glass without encasing the entire building in glass. Yeah. And so, to me, in my mind, having just a plain door like that with you can't see through it, anything, this just seems so much smarter. And it's big size, and you get the glass right in front, and then you get to look out into the gorgeous view, which was another thing I didn't want to block. With just a regular door.
You're in a heavily forested space right here, so your view is the trees.
Yeah, like 5 feet out in front of your face, all you can see is trees, but I wouldn't have it any other way.
But it's pretty quiet up here.
It is. All you hear is birds and occasional chipmunks.
Yeah.
Pretty
so you want to show us the inside and kind of tell us what's going on in there?
Yeah, let's take a look.
Get over here out of the way. So, here's the first floor. Let me get out of the way here and get the camera.
The humble abode.
Yeah, so talk to us a little bit about what your design is here. And you got this big sliding glass door, and then you got a couple of windows over here. Tell us what the process and design was here.
So the living room's over here where you're standing, and I wanted to be able to have a nice view from there, of course. So the kitchen will be over here. And so while you're here cooking and hanging out, you just have all this nice view of the forest that you're looking at. Plus, you have light coming in as well, so we don't have to wire as many fixtures. Just mainly being able to have this light in view.
Some ventilation.
As much as we could. Yeah, I mean, definitely, yeah. You're cooking here, you know, we don't have a vent hooked up, so you're going to want a window for that. We're going to have an L-shaped counter space over here, with the fridge and the sink like this. Piping going through the bathroom right here is what we framed up, which is just going to have a shower and a composting toilet, and that's the window for obvious reasons, of course.
So you got how big of a space is that with the bathroom?
The inside dimensions of this are 6 feet by 4 feet. And the top of the loft is 8 feet, so this is around, 7.5 up. So just enough. I mean, I'm 6 foot tall. Yeah, I can touch it, but I'm not going to be jumping up and hitting my head on it anytime soon, hopefully.
And so you got a pretty heavy insulation there.
Yeah.
So you framed up this house a little beefier than most houses. From what I've seen, I see a lot of people building. They build by sheds. They buy sheds, big long sheds from shed companies that are built not as houses but as sheds. So they're doing it with 2x4 framing, shorter walls, shorter loft roof spaces, and you kind of went a different direction. You went with a bigger framing package, which was allowed you to put more insulation in.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that.
So yeah, this is 2x4 because it's not anything structural, but I wanted to be able to have the loft upstairs and enough room that I could stand up and not be so limited unnecessarily. This, with the 2x6 studs, we're able to get this R21 insulation in there, which is pretty thick. And like I was saying earlier, this, just how it is right now, that AC cools this place so nicely. I can set it to 70 and it'll turn off very quickly because it just contains everything, because this big thick insulation, which was the benefit of that.
So how you got insulation in the floor?
Yeah, actually the same stuff.
Okay.
Same stuff is in the floor.
And in the ceiling?
Yep, same thing in the ceiling, all the way around. We didn't do this because
That's
it's
interior.
within.
Yeah. Okay, so and then the other thing you're doing is I don't see any sheetrock. What's going on?
Yeah, I don't want to do that. It would have been cheaper, especially during that price jump that we had. But with this, you just put it on, clear coat it, trim it, and you're done. You don't have to cut the sand and mud and tape and all that, and it just, with such a small area, it wasn't that big of a deal to me to do it this way. Plus, this looks way cooler in my mind.
More
It's
cabiny.
cabiny, natural. I mean, I'm already in the woods. Wouldn't want it to look too modern and manufactured.
Yeah.
For this.
Yeah. So that's really cool. So you got you're putting all this plywood in as your walls, and and your electric's roughed in here. You learned how to do that.
Yeah, that was a definitely scary new thing. Like, how do you wire for an outlet?
Yeah.
No one teaches you that thing really.
Right.
But what I realized is that it's not rocket science. You just got to be shown or look up a video on it, because it wasn't anything insane. We had outlets and switches and lights. That's all. You know, we weren't trying to do anything above what we could figure out.
Right. And so now you got a big loft, and what I kind of noticed in here, it's almost entirely the same size as the floor downstairs.
Yeah.
Pretty close.
Honestly, the loft is going to be the loft is my favorite part.
Let's go take a look.
Yeah, let's get up there.
So right now you're using a ladder to access the space while you're in the construction, but
Yeah.
what are you going to wind up doing long term?
Still trying to decide. We
Yeah.
either, one of two things, we figure. Either a ladder type thing, flush against the wall, so that we do have the space out here, or some sort of stair step up to a little platform and then up.
Okay.
Kind of depends on how the angles and everything will be. But yeah, eventually, that's what we'll have.
Okay. Okay, so here's the loft. So tell us, what's the dimensions here? What made you kind of decide to do this design?
So a lot of lofts would go about halfway across to give you more open space down there. We gave ourselves a little less than a 4-foot gap because that's plenty. Because this couch is going to go right down there in the living room, and I wanted more space up here for my computer to be in the corner right over there. Have the bed here in the back, and I wanted to be able to stand up as much as I could. So this is about, I'm 6 foot, and this is about halfway down the loft. So it's 8 foot at the peak up there, about 6 midway, and 4 foot at the bottom over there. In the I think this is 11 by 11. And I want to be able to stand up and walk around up here and be able to actually like spend time up here, you know, not crawling around, not having any of the
Sore neck or sore back from pumping over all the time?
Yeah, I didn't want to be, you know, like this the whole time. Anytime I'm going to be up here.
Yeah.
Having the headspace was
Okay.
amazing.
And you've got it almost, well, you're pretty well sheeted in right now in the loft.
The loft, yeah, it is.
And you got some power in here, and so kind of lay out how you gonna put things together up here. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, so when we get the power pulled in and wired up, the computer will be here in this corner. I'd like to have as much things, you know, like the monitor and stuff mounted on the wall as I can to just have a smaller desk and more floor space to walk around. And then the bed will be back here. I'm gonna probably put it long ways like this. I mean, I'm not really too worried about not being able to sit up, you know, in the bed, even if it is a little bit higher up at the lowest part. Just not bunking my head was kind of the main goal of all of this. We got a 4-banger outlet here, two, and another 2 on the back wall. Maybe been a little bit of overkill, but I'd rather have it and not need it than need it not have it.
And so then you put 2 little windows in, but you've got this great big window right here that's just sort of directly over the top of that slider. What was they thinking with the way you put the windows in?
Well, I mean, we have the great view downstairs. I think it would be a travesty to not have a good view on the upstairs, especially if I'm going to be spending time up here.
Yeah.
This just, I almost went smaller. I don't know what I was thinking. I'm so glad that I went this big. I mean, if I did it again, I mean, you can't have enough glass, honestly. The 2 windows are a little bit small, but that's okay because I have this. And these windows here were mainly just to have airflow and to be able to put the AC in over there, which it's worked out swimmingly so far.
Yeah, I mean, I was amazed that little tiny air conditioner has been cooling this space, and you've been in the 90s.
Yeah.
Hundreds.
Even the hundreds, yeah, over the last few weeks, and it's been comfortable.
It's kept up. It's honestly been insane.
And part of that's because I think you've got some a lot of shade coming off the trees.
Yes. Yes.
And so you do have some time during the day where you've got direct sunlight out here, but you've also got a lot of nice shade, which is really handy this time of year.
Seriously. Seriously. It's amazing to me how cool that thing keeps it even when it's not done and sealed up in here. Like, we still got to caulk and trim and paint and seal it up even more, which is only going to make it even better, which is super motivating.
So Cameron, on the flip side, in the winter, what are you doing for heat?
Well, just a little plug-in heater. I mean, if that little thing can cool this the way it did, I don't think a little heater is going to have any more of a problem with that. I mean, if I have to get two, I have to get two, but this will contain the heat or the cold that's in here, for sure. So that's really kind of the least of the problems, honestly, thankfully.
So what's the next step?
Well, today, hoping to get this clear coated with polyurethane, oil based, so it gives it that ambering over time, because that'll look really slick. And then once that is done, we'll be able to put the flooring in up here, and then the bed's coming in, and I'm sleeping here.
Yeah.
So very shortly.
So you're going to be sleeping in it as you finish it.
Yeah.
Working on it and living in it at the same time. And that's and so that's kind of cool because again you're saving money because you're able to move into the project as it's partially finished and then be right here to work on it every day and keep the progress going forward.
Yeah.
And you're not having to go stay somewhere else. So that's kind of cool. I mean, you don't have to have this thing finished and ready to go before you move in necessarily if you're willing to put up with a little construction.
Yeah. I mean, even as is right now, you could sleep in here, and it would be comfortable with the AC, and it's insulated. I mean, at that point, it'd be fine. I mean, you could pitch a tent outside if you really wanted to.
Sure, why not? So any final thoughts? I mean, we'll probably check back in with you as you go along here.
Yeah.
But how do you feel about the project? How do you feel about? Do you feel like you're kind of getting away with something by being able to do this?
I keep on joking that it feels like I'm cheating.
Yeah.
Because I am.
Yeah.
I don't have to pay rent. I don't have to pay for a lot of things that living in the matchbox apartments on the hamster wheel job require you to do. Overall, it's still surreal. It's hard to. I don't know. I don't think it's hit me yet. But building this and gonna live in this tiny house really, really soon. It's just kind of. I've just been kind of grinding at it and not thinking too hard. I guess.
What would you tell other people if they were considering this sort of a lifestyle or change of what everybody else is doing that's normal?
If you're at the consideration phase, do it. Because it's kind of hard. It was hard for me to find a bad worst case scenario. Like, what is the worst case scenario? Oh no, I built a tiny house that I live in for really cheap. I mean, that's the worst case, you know? I would just say to do it because you don't got much to lose.
Yeah.
And it's not that expensive.
Yeah.
Relative.
Especially if you do it yourself.
Especially if you do it yourself.
So
yeah.
Save a lot of money.
Paying someone, I don't even know. I know it'll be more than I'm in so far.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, super. Appreciate you taking us through the tour and kind of giving us a peek on what you're up to in here and what your thoughts are about why you did this. And as he said, if you're thinking about it, do it. And we'll check back in with you as you progress along a little bit and see how you come out with the project.
Hey, sounds good. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, everybody.